Good morning. Hope that your Wednesday is off to a good start. I'm really glad you're going to spend a few minutes of a nice Wednesday morning with me. Of course, I'm in my outdoor office, the official Coffee with the Preacher mug. Man, it's a nice morning. Nice morning out here. But I am glad you're going to spend a few minutes of a nice Wednesday morning with me. And I invite you to comment or like this on Facebook, particularly comment if you have questions or comments. And of course, if you are watching it a little later on YouTube, please subscribe and like it. So we are now almost to Christmas. You're fast running out of shopping days, about a week left. And with that in mind, I want to look at, look more at Christmas. Some of the texts surrounding Christmas. The last couple of weeks I've looked at John the Baptist, lectionary gospel readings for those 2 Sundays. And John the Baptist, of course, was the forerunner of Jesus. Now, in the way of Christmas associated texts, of course, one of the most famous is from Matthew 1, 18 to 25. As I've memorized it in the King James, now the birth of Jesus Christ took place on this wise. Whereas his mother Mary is found to be with child of the Holy Ghost before they came together, Joseph, her husband, being a just man, was minded to put her away privily, meaning secretly, and so on and so forth. I used that text in church, preached from it a couple of weeks ago, and I guess in nearly every Christmas Eve service, everywhere, that passage will be read. It may be preached on Christmas Eve. It's one of 2 gospel accounts of the birth of Jesus. The other one, of course, being in Luke, and Matthew's account really focuses more on Joseph than on Mary. But what I'd like for us to do is to take a look at what comes right before this. We all know Matthew 1, 18 to 25. The birth of Jesus Christ took place in this way, etc., etc. What comes before that? The book of the genealogy of Jesus Christ, the son of David, the son of Abraham. Abraham is the father of Isaac, and Isaac the father of Jacob, and Jacob the father of Judah and his brothers, and Judah the father of Perez and Zerah by Tamar, and Perez the father of Hezron, and Hezron the father of Ram, and Ram the father of Amminadab, and Amminadab the father of Nahshon, and Nahshon the father of Salmon, and Salmon the father of Boaz by Rahab, and Boaz the father of Obed by Ruth, and Obed the father of Jesse, and Jesse the father of David the king. And David was the father of Solomon by the wife of Uriah, that is, by Bathsheba, and Solomon the father of Rehoboam, and Rehoboam the father of Abijah, and Abijah the father of Asaph, and Asaph the father of Jehoshaphat, and Jehoshaphat the father of Joram, and Joram the father of Uzziah, Uzziah the father of Jotham, and Jotham the father of Ahaz, Ahaz the father of Manasseh, Ahaz the father of Hezekiah, Hezekiah the father of Manasseh, and Manasseh the father of Amos, and Amos the father of Josiah, and Josiah the father of Jehoiakim, Jeconiah, and his brothers at the time of the deportation to Babylon. And after the deportation to Babylon, Jeconiah was the father of Shealtiel, and Shealtiel the father of Zerubbabel, and Zerubbabel the father of Abiud, and Abiud the father of Eliakim, Eliakim the father of Azor, and Azor the father of Zadok, and Zadok the father of Achim, Achim the father of Eliud, Eliud the father of Eleazar, and Eleazar the father of Mathan, and Mathan the father of Jacob, and Jacob the father of Joseph, the husband of Mary, of whom Jesus was born, who is called Christ. So all the generations from Abraham to David are 14 generations, and from David to the deportation to Babylon, 14 generations, and from the deportation of Babylon to the Christ, 14 generations. Obviously, that doesn't find its way into many Christmas Eve services and programs. That doesn't read quite as well as Matthew 1, 18 to 25, and certainly not nearly as well as Luke 2, 1 through 20, Luke's a very familiar and famous account of the birth of Jesus. And to be honest, I don't think I've ever actually preached from that genealogy. But that doesn't mean it's something we should skip over it. The inspired gospel writer has it there for a reason. So let's take a look at it. Right off the bat, you'll see that Matthew starts with Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Judah, etc., etc., etc. So-and-so is the father of so-and-so is the father of so-and-so, etc., 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 all the way to Eliezer, Mathan, Jacob, and Joseph, who was the husband of Mary. By the way, Luke has has a genealogy of Jesus. That is in the latter part of Luke chapter 3. And there's some interesting differences between Luke's genealogy and Matthew's. Luke works back from Jesus. Starts with Jesus and goes back. And goes all the way back to Adam. Matthew begins in the past and comes forward to Jesus. Matthew begins with Abraham. Luke starts with Jesus and works all the way back to Adam. So-and-so is the son of so-and-so, who is the son of so-and-so, who is the son of Adam, who is the son of God. So in this way, this is a subtle way of connecting Jesus to God. Obviously, we know that he is Son of God by virtue of incarnation, the virgin birth. But this is another way of connecting Jesus all the way back to God. Luke has a different name for Joseph's father. Matthew, why that is, who knows at this point, but Luke does record Joseph's father with a different name. Matthew includes several women in his genealogy, which is a little interesting because on the whole, Luke's gospel is regarded as being showing more attention to women and or the marginalized of whatever form. Matthew includes Tamar, Rahab, Ruth, Bathsheba, and Mary at the very end. So let's look at Matthew's gospel account. Matthew's gospel account of the genealogy of Jesus. Like I said, it's not something that we should skip over. It goes back to Abraham. Rather than all the way back to Adam, goes to Abraham. Why Abraham? Abraham is the great forebear of the chosen people. God's covenant with the Hebrew people goes back to Abraham. He's the great forefather. God calls Abraham, tells him that his descendants are going to be like the stars of the sky, the sands of the seashore, that in his descendants all the rest of the world will be blessed. Makes covenants with Abraham. So this anchors Jesus securely in Jewish and Hebrew roots. Along the way between Abraham and Jesus, there are two important waypoints. Working the way from Abraham up, you have David. David, and the next waypoint, the Babylonian exile. Begin with Abraham, go through David to the Babylonian exile. "14 generations between each. 14 generations from Abraham to David, 14 from David to the exile, and then 14 from the exile to Joseph." So let's put on our Old Testament hats here. What's going on here? We have 3 sets of 14. The number 3 is biblically an important number, as is the number 7. So it is not accidental that there are 14 generations in each set. Matthew is showing something of that. Anytime you see a multiple of 7, our ears should perk up. Our spidey senses should be tingling to go back to refer to Spider-Man. You see a multiple of 7, multiple of 12 in the Bible, that means something. Luke, by the way, has 77 generations. Again, that's an important number. It's a multiple of 7. Abraham and David. You begin with Abraham. The first covenant with the Hebrew people is with Abraham. God makes a covenant with Abraham that he will bless his children, and in his children all the rest of the world will be blessed. The covenant includes that Abraham will have an heir at a time when he and his wife Sarah are childless and considered barren. Go back and read Genesis 12, Genesis 15. And then we have David, the great paradigmatic king of the Old Testament. All the kings after David get measured up against him. And so did not walk in the ways of his father David, and did what was evil in the sight of the Lord. And so did not walk in the ways of David, and did what was evil in the sight of the Lord, over and over and over again. And in very few cases do we have a record of so-and-so reigned in Judah forever how many years, and did right as his father David had done. That doesn't show up, that doesn't happen much. But David is a great paradigmatic king, and all the other kings are measured against him. And Jesus is, as it were, sitting on the throne of his father David. But really, if you want to think about it theologically, perhaps we should view David as for a time occupying the throne that really belonged to Jesus. Abraham, 14 generations to David. Abraham, the initial covenant with the Hebrew people that promised them the land. David, covenant with him that there would always be an heir of David on the throne in Israel. 14 generations of David to the exile. One of the climatic and really climactic and dramatic episodes of the Old Testament, defining episodes. And then 14 from the exile to Jesus. And then we have several women included in there: Tamar, Rahab, Ruth, and Bathsheba. Even though Bathsheba isn't named, it's obviously her. And then right in Mary. Let's look at each of these. Tamar. Rather ugly episode in this genealogy. Tamar and her father-in-law Judah. Tamar becomes pregnant by her father-in-law. Obviously, when we read these Old Testament accounts, really when we read anything in the Bible, we aren't given like rosy pictures of everybody. There are all sorts of sordid details, sordid events that take place. These are real people who have real fallings and real failings. And so we have Tamar here, who gets pregnant by her own father-in-law, and really, if anything, the fault is more with Judah than with her. Next, we have Rahab. Rahab was the prostitute in Jericho who welcomed the spies, harbored the spies when they came to check out the land before the children of Israel entered it. And then we have Ruth, who was a foreigner. She was a foreigner. She wasn't an Israelite. She was a Moabite. And by the way, Rahab, the prostitute, would have been a foreigner as well. Bathsheba, she is the wife of Uriah, whom David had an affair with, and this was purely David's doing. She had very little say in the matter. And then at the end, if you can include Mary, unwed mother. Now, obviously, we know that her child is conceived by the Holy Spirit, but the rest of the world at the time didn't know that. So we have these interests in these women there, and each of these has something, has some skeleton in the closet. And for as royal as this line is, you don't get much more royal than Abraham and David. But for as royal as the line is, we have elements of scandal. There are a couple of foreigners there. Which means this, that this kingdom that Jesus came to implement, to introduce, this kingdom is for everyone. The kingdom is for everyone. It's anchored, securely anchored in Jewish Hebrew roots, Abraham and David, and then the dramatic and defining moment of the Old Testament, the exile to Babylon. All of that leads to Jesus. Fixed Jewish roots. But it is still a kingdom that is open to everyone. It is a kingdom that is open to everyone, regardless of their nationality, ethnicity, or language, male, female, socioeconomic status. It is open to everyone, and the only requirement is simply faith. The only prerequisite is simply faith. This incredible line, this incredible kingdom, and like I mentioned, I think we should look at the throne as really being Jesus' throne from eternity, that David simply occupies for a while. This enormous kingdom, this incredible kingdom, is open to everyone. It is open to everyone. Male, female, whatever socioeconomic status, whatever your ethnicity, or nation, or language, the only prerequisite being faith. And that's a really good piece of good news on a Wednesday morning. Have a great rest of your day.